is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome into Fresh Takes with Russo and Felice. I am Paul Russo, joined as always by Nick Felice. We are back here on a Wednesday primetime edition. It's been a while since we've had to do one of these, but had to shift some things around, make things work. But we are here on a Wednesday. Lots to get
10 p.m.
No, if this was 10 p.m., I would have either just moved it to Thursday or canceled this thing altogether.
But, not to interrupt you,
You're good.
if you watch this every Thursday morning, it's not a big difference to you.
That's true. That's true. If you are not a live listener or viewer, it doesn't hold any bearing. So, quickly before we get any further, thank a couple of our sponsors, including Blush by CV Designs, a local woman-owned business at the heart of the Finger Lakes, offering women's clothing and accessories, quality home goods, and unique gifts. See what everybody's talking about by visiting their location downtown Seneca Falls. Browse their full products online at shopcvdesigns.com. And Selly Northern, supporting local construction since 1929 with premium products and quality service, serving the Finger Lakes region with their ready-mix plant in Waterloo, New York. Alrighty.
I like that blue behind you. You're giving off
color.
like
Thank you. The
aquarium vibe.
an aura. We got a little bit of color next to you, but the coat's kind of blocking it for you. It's on your right. There you go. See, so
I like the blue.
yeah.
My favorite color.
We got lighter around
What's your
here.
favorite color?
Blue.
Nice.
What's yours?
Blue.
Okay, that settles that.
We agree.
It's also a big primary color here at FL1.
I don't think we're going to be agreeing on the Washington-Detroit game.
We'll get to that, obviously, in a second because you kind of teed up, right? Football wild card round. I guess, in the grand scheme of it, there weren't a ton of surprises necessarily, I don't think, at least in terms of the outright results, right? Now, for the sake of picks, I got the Green Bay game wrong against Philly. But, right, Philly was the favorite. They win. Rams ended up being the favorite at the end of the day. They won. Bills favorites, they won. I guess the only two true upsets would have been Houston over the Chargers.
But the Chargers would have been good until the dirty bubble ate Harbaugh.
That's fair. And then Washington was underdogs against Tampa Bay. So, but I think, those were two games that also I think a lot of people kind of felt were probably toss-up ones more than anything else. Hey, look, we both got the Charger game wrong in our picks, right? We both picked the Chargers. I don't know what to say. Other than that, you went at that point 5-1.
Yeah.
So,
I got to start with you, though.
Yeah.
You've been a Washington fan your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Well, mostly, yeah.
The last time they won a playoff game, you probably first couple years as a fan. Not been a fan long.
It probably would have been the first year technically because that, when I was like super young, I'd like the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Like super young, right? And Mark Brunell was what I call my first true favorite football player. Ends up moving on from Jacksonville to Washington, and I'm like, okay, I have to follow him. And I don't know how much of a difference that'd make in my fandom at the moment in terms of enjoyability, but that first year with Brunell in Washington ends up being, now the second to last time they won a playoff game.
Yeah, but when you saw that field goal bounce off
Yeah.
the post and in, what was going through your head initially?
Okay, so I'm watching with my dad, and Zane Gonzalez lines up. First and before that, quickly, I don't know if people know this, but that's something that Zane does with his hair before every field goal kick. Just happens to be that the camera was just on him for an extended period this time. Either way, so he lines up, right, and my dad goes like, you're fine. He's going to make this no problem. I'm like, famous last words right there. And that thing doinks. And I think maybe for a split second, yeah, I was like, oh, crap, right? But, like, I could tell the way the ball went off. I'm like, it's going the way that's supposed to go. No worries. I wasn't worrying at that point.
20 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. My main concern with that game was I just didn't, and they did it right. I just didn't think Washington could afford to give Tampa Bay the ball back at all. Just the way the Buccaneers were kind of driving those last 2 drives that they had, which ended up being scores for them. I just did not think, Washington could afford to do that. And luckily, I guess they didn't in that sense. And here we are now going into divisional weekend, and I'm going to be delusional as all hell, and I'm going to enjoy it for as long as I can.
The Russo household got a playoff win for the first time in 2 decades.
Yeah. Who would have thought it would be Washington and frankly, not Miami, I guess, more than anything else.
Yeah, that's very sad.
That's also an inaccurate statement, but that you have.
Oh, really?
My mom.
Oh, yeah, what's she like? Who does she root for?
So because, as I call it, because my mom is my mom, she has a weird twist with the Packers and Bears, which, as we know, right, as diehards, doesn't make any sense. Born in Wisconsin, family's all Packer fans. However, there is an offshoot because of the Illinois backgrounds within the family of there being some Bears fans lingering around. So, but when she was, when she was like in high school and graduated out and everything, the Bears were kind of at their peak with Walter Payton and everything. So I think she kind of leans more Bears than Packers, but yeah, I guess she kind of has both of them in a way. But I mean, the Bears have a playoff win in the past 20 years, as do the Packers. So
I mean, I get you and Pat choosing a franchise that was pretty bad as your favorite team, and they still haven't gotten good until your team this year.
Oh, that's necessarily fair to either one of us.
But no, it's pretty cool. I was watching all the TikToks, these Washington fans freaking out. Mm-hmm. They finally got, this is all they want was a playoff win. Eventually, you're going to see your expectations are going to get a little higher next year. And if not right now, let's go out and beat Detroit. Let's do it. Let's shock the world. Let's play for a Super Bowl in the nation's capital. And I think they got a legit shot on Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, would I be surprised?
It doesn't sound like that, but yeah.
Would I be surprised if Detroit blows them out? No. But would I be surprised if Washington pulls off the big upset? No.
Okay.
I think this is a great story. Dan Quinn is a great coach. Derrick Henry is a great running back, and Dallas could have had both of them.
Well, okay. Let's get into some of that more stuff there that you teed up. Let's start with that game you kind of mentioned there, right?
Did you just mute me like
yes, I did.
Round the horn?
Yes, because you just don't have the Dan Campbell fortitude to say that you think Detroit's going to roll Washington. You're beating around the bush. And so I'm going to cut you off at the pass until we make our picks on that front. Baltimore handles business against Pittsburgh. We both kind of had a feeling that was going to be more than likely the case, but did you expect? Look, the way they had been playing, right, it gave a little hope that wouldn't have been the way that they went out. But like, did you really expect Pittsburgh to look as kind of bad as they did in a playoff game like that?
Well, there was a little part of me on Saturday afternoon and thought maybe the Steelers can win this game. Then I realized who they are, and they're a team without a quarterback. Yeah. And they look terrible on Saturday. And I've seen videos of Steeler fans, and they're taking it in like this is their life now. They're just mediocrity, and the Ravens own them. Even the Browns have owned them, which is crazy talk. And the Steelers are the Steelers now, and it's a baseball city again, which I'm pretty happy about.
Yeah, things aren't well in Pittsburgh in that sense.
Penguins just dropping their goalie today.
Well, I was about to kind of allude to that.
It's some rough times there.
Yeah. The Steeler fan base they can say they are united, but either that means they are incredibly divided, or they are lying about what they are believing. Again, been going back to this now for the past few years. Tomlin's not the voice anymore there. Don't know what to tell you. Good coach. Probably has outstayed his welcome on the sideline.
It's not like he's going anywhere.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's like I don't know where they kind of go from here, right? And this is probably more a discussion that we have going into April and the draft and everything. But yeah, I just this is a team now that is pretty much the worst thing you can be in sports, right? Average, and it's nothing more, nothing less. You're there. Baltimore looked good enough. Still some things I'm not a big fan of, and maybe reserve more of that for when we get to our picks with Buffalo and them. But, hey, you win, you move on. Nothing more, nothing less.
We didn't learn anything from Baltimore or Buffalo this week.
Yeah, I mean, the Buffalo game was, the biggest gap to one, technically, in terms of scoring margin, so.
Not surprised. I mean, you thought maybe first drive by the Broncos 7-0. Like,
What you guys did.
We all did.
I didn't.
We were a group effort.
Yeah.
But they didn't prove anything. That's the Broncos. It's the Steelers. You should win those games. They didn't prove nothing. They prove it this week, and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have the same amount of pressure on them this week, and I think Baltimore could get it done. Maybe I'll change my mind when the picks come around, but I did not learn anything about Baltimore on, what was it, Saturday? Saturday.
Well, you didn't learn anything about Baltimore. You didn't learn anything about Buffalo, but did you learn anything about Houston?
I learned nothing more about Houston. I learned more about the Chargers and how much Justin Herbert sucks.
Ah, boy.
And Jim Harbaugh, good coach.
So here's my thing about the Herbert thing. The same people who are doing the whole Herbert thing, if the roles were reversed, we'd be talking about Stroud. The same way. So I'm just going to kind of leave my piece at that with it.
I think they just need to turn the lights down. I mean, the brightness on the lights a little bit because they're just too bright for Herbert. Just turn them down a little bit. Dim them a little bit.
So, do we get to this part of the discussion now for the wild card weekend? Speaking of lights.
Well, I mean, the Chargers, Houston, I mean, you could probably agree with this. It's a nice game, but these teams aren't going anywhere.
Well, Houston has the opportunity to do the funniest thing this weekend, right?
I mean, I don't see it.
No, neither do I. But I mean, the opportunity is there. No, I'm going to trap us here with the dimming lights and everything.
Dim the lights. Here we go. Ryan Seacrest.
Poor Sam Darnold.
Oh yeah.
He
saw ghosts.
It's something that, we talk about on here a lot. Hard to feel bad for professional athletes sometimes, but at the same time, they're human beings. We were so close to getting him out of this corner of ghosts and bad play, and then the final month of the NFL season and the wild card round happens, and I don't mean to use the Giants as the example, Nick, but somebody brought up the fact how it's like, and yet he's still going to get the bag, but it's going to be from the Giants. And, man, we both picked the Rams. In our picks, we both thought the Rams are going to win. I don't think I necessarily expected it to look the way that it did. And the wild part is the way the final month or so went for the Vikings, like, that's your coach of the year, too, in the NFL? I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think Dan Quinn should be coach of the year.
No, that's a good answer.
Personally. But he did a great job there. To have Sam Darnold as your quarterback?
Win
14 games?
I don't disagree. I'm just saying the final month for them needs to be studied.
I mean, Sam Darnold, my dad, I'll give him the credit here.
Shout out Daryl.
Sam Darnold is just Andy Dalton. There's no difference. They're the same type of quarterback. They can get you a little. They could be a great backup and get you a little bit far, and that's it. You're not going to win no Super Bowl with these guys. And I mean, let's just face it. Minnesota Vikings are cursed.
Well, I mean, you could win a Super Bowl with those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens won one with Trent Dilfer
Yes.
as their quarterback.
But you have to have a great defense. And the Vikings have a greatish defense. Not great.
Goodish, decent.
It's like in between good and great, that defense. But you got to have an unbelievable defense. That's what Trent Dilfer had.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, that's true.
When Peyton Manning could barely walk out there, that Broncos defense was legit.
Now that's a pull.
Yeah.
People forget.
That defense was awesome.
Von Miller.
Yeah. And Super Bowl 50.
Yeah.
Cam Newton cried after the game. But
I'm back.
I don't even know what I was talking about. Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And, he's going to go somewhere else. I think he's thrown his last ball with the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go with J.J. McCarthy. A couple weeks ago, he probably would have said something different. But they're going to go with Darnold. And the Vikings are – that's what I was going to say. They're cursed. They don't get a lot of hype like some teams. Cowboys being cursed. I don't know if they're cursed. They're just terrible. But the Vikings are cursed. This team has had the fact that they've never even won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now we're in an era of Vikings football for decades here where they can't even get to the Super Bowl. And they've had some great moments. The Diggs catch there against the Saints.
7 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
Or was it today? No, yesterday.
It was a great moment. But they still didn't get the Super Bowl.
Wow.
I work with a Vikings fan. And he's my boss, Mike Cattell. Shout out. And it's got to be tough. I don't know if there's any hope with this franchise.
There is not.
There's not.
No.
And I can argue Minnesota is, for 4 sports teams to have all 4, worst sports town. What do those teams do
Wow.
besides lose? They haven't had a championship over there in 30-something years. And I think that was
Twins.
the Twins. The Twins. Who lost 18 straight playoff games until last year. Was it last year they finally ended it?
Yeah.
Terrible sports town. To have the 4.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
There's not too many that have the 4, but they're one, and they're awful.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who.
Detroit used to be like that, but that city's on the rise now. Tigers are good. Lions are great. Pistons are good. Red Wings, what's up? But
Chicago?
Chicago.
At least in the moment,
yeah,
Chicago's. I think Chicago's worse. In the moment. In the moment.
But in the last 30 years, you got to go Minnesota.
Fair. Right. Yeah.
You could argue New York in the last decade, but
I'd still probably. Well.
for the 4 of them. I'm not talking Liberty.
I still think I might go Chicago.
I'm not talking New York FC.
I still think I'm going Chicago because outside of the Cubs in 2016, it's been.
Yeah.
The Bears had playoff moments.
What about Boston? Even
You
though
know,
Boston
to be.
fired 2 coaches.
Hold on, though. To be fair. No. Even then, there's a little bit of recency bias going on there. But no, especially in the past 10 years.
It's
no.
either Chicago or Minnesota.
Yeah.
One of them.
Minneapolis.
Or Detroit.
Twin City.
Or Detroit till recently.
Yeah. Pick one of those 3. All right, let's get to our picks here. So, for those who are new, I won the regular season. That means I got a 1-game advantage going into the playoffs. So we went in with a de facto 1-0 record for me, 0-1 record for Nick, which is why the records are going to say and sound the way that they were. So I went 4-2 on the week, as I mentioned earlier. Nick, you went 5-1, which means we are both 5-2.
Yeah, I gotta keep it going.
Yeah. So our first game, 4:30 on Saturday, Houston at Kansas City. The Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites at home.
I like to think the Texans learned a little bit from last year, losing the ball the more game.
I'd like to think the Texans do the funniest thing this weekend. It's not going to happen.
Well, teams seem to win better when Stephon Diggs doesn't play, so.
It's true. But where was that the rest of the season?
True. I'm taking Kansas City.
Yeah.
This is so similar to the Patriots dynasty. How many playoff games are we going to see in Arrowhead Stadium, just like in Gillette Stadium?
I hear you. All right, Washington at Detroit, Saturday night at 8 p.m. The Lions, 9.5-point favorites at home.
Lions? Why?
I didn't say anything.
I know you're gonna say.
You said Lions why, so that means you're asking yourself why.
Nope.
Yeah.
It's a pre-why.
So you're going Detroit.
Detroit. David Montgomery back. Feeling confident.
I'm just saying, hypothetically, in this hypothetical game, if I said Detroit right here, what happens to your why?
I think he gets nulled like a hammer in TGL.
Good shout. But I'm taking Washington.
Why?
You see this name on this hat?
Yep.
Washington.
And wouldn't it be something they go to a conference championship?
I want Dan Campbell's kneecaps.
Yeah.
I want them in sauce. Look, I'm not dumb. I recognize I'm probably giving up a game to you here.
Which is fine.
But why not us?
Yeah.
Why not Jaden Daniels? Why not Dan Quinn? Why not Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu?
Scary Terry.
Why not Scary Terry? Cool. You have Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery.
Boss Laporta.
You know who else? You know who's not there anymore? Calvin Johnson. Barry Sanders ain't coming through that door.
Nate Burleson's on Nickelodeon.
Exactly. Who we have on defense? Anzalone. I just want to give a shout out to my Italian boy, but what I'm getting at here is why not Washington? You doubted me last week, even though you took them as well. Why not us?
It'd be crazy. They go to the conference championship game. Something the Cowboys have been trying to do for 30 years.
I know. It'd be great, wouldn't it? Be great. All right.
Now that I think about it,
Oh, go ahead.
if Washington gets to the conference championship game, since they made it, has every team in the NFC been in the conference championship game?
Besides the Cowboys in that stretch,
Yeah, I think Washington's the only one that hasn't.
the Lions.
Lions last year.
Oh, that's right. My bad. Yeah.
Because the whole NFC,
Yeah, that's my bad there.
the whole NFC South's been to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Vikings have
Rams, Niners, Seahawks, and Cardinals. The West of it
yeah,
as
they've all been
well.
to the Super Bowl. It would just be the Cowboys in the whole
Wow.
conference if Washington
Wow.
does it.
Now you're rethinking your pick.
Nope.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Sunday, 3:30. Rams, or 3. Is it 3? Yeah, it's 3. Rams at the Eagles. The Eagles are 5.5-point favorites.
I think the Eagles win, but I hate them so much and I can't stand them. I hear about A.J. Brown reading books on the sideline. I'm taking the Rams just to spite those losers. Give me the Rams.
I think the Rams have a good shot anyway.
You're taking them?
Absolutely.
Nice, yeah.
No, they won the game. We didn't talk a ton about it, obviously, but the Eagles didn't look exactly over the top. So,
I'm sick of them.
for what it's worth.
And Matthew Stafford, his team now to win, I think he has a chance to be a top 10 quarterback of all time.
Okay, wow.
Has a chance.
Well, speaking of chances and legacies.
And it would be great, not to ruin your Washington parade. I know they beat him last year, but to Detroit to get to the Super Bowl, to get through Matthew Stafford. Can't write this stuff up.
It's fair. All right, Sunday night, 6:30. Baltimore at Buffalo. Buffalo is a 1-point underdog right now at home.
Can't believe that. But I can believe it. Because I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens in this game.
Why?
I think Josh Allen's the MVP. I don't think he's going to get it just because of how the All-Pro thing went down. And the All-Pro quarterback has been the MVP since, 2017.
Sure.
And, I think Baltimore gets it done. I think just the dual threat of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry's a big threat. And we started the season with Chiefs-Ravens. I think the AFC is going to end with Chiefs-Ravens.
I'm on Buffalo. Different game than it was back in October. I think there's a lot of hype around the Ravens right now that I don't know if it's necessarily justified.
Well, you've been saying all year they don't win the big games.
Yeah.
And this is finally a big one.
Yep. So we'll see.
I have a stat I heard today.
Sure.
Sean McVay, in his 12 playoff games as a head coach, has never allowed a 100-yard rusher.
Well, he has his hand full this weekend.
We'll see.
Yep. All right, let's go over to college football here. And this is why the title of the podcast partly is Party Like It's 1988. Because the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Nick, are on the precipice of getting a national title.
Number
So
12.
we start with that game
What's the-
against Penn State.
We didn't talk about this last week?
Well, because it was after our podcast last week.
When did we have the podcast?
Last week? Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
We were at our normal time last week.
Okay. Trying to remember.
So the question
The game felt like so long.
The question, I flip it to you, like you flipped it to me, Nick. How did it feel? Now, it's a little bit different because Notre Dame was pretty much in control there, especially at the end. All things considered. You're not relying on a gust of the breeze or the toe of a college kicker. You know, Notre Dame in control. Now, they had a little bit of help, but it was stuff that we talked about game plan-wise, right? Drew Aller was Drew Aller. Penn State was Penn State. But for you, and being a Notre Dame fan, what's the feeling like first, and then what was it kind of living out that second half?
I can finally say, pretty happily, Jeter's the GOAT. It's one of those great games to being a sports fan. This is why you are a sports fan, to win one of those back and forth thrilling games.
Right.
When it's all said and done, wow, how did we pull that one off? That's what it felt like. And as a Notre Dame fan, we've gone through a lot of hard times. I've been a fan since I became a fan. A lot of teams, probably around 2005.
I've been a
And
fan since I was a fan.
and we've lost a lot of, when we play the big SEC teams, we always got blown out.
Mm-hmm.
Jamarcus Russell, I mentioned, 2007 Sugar Bowl. Alabama, 2013 National Championship game. Got beat by Alabama in the playoffs. We got beat by Clemson in the playoffs after we lost to Clemson. Well, the Alabama year, we lost to Clemson in the ACC title game. We lost to Florida State, that close game in 2014. We lost to Texas, that close game in 2017. We lost, the close game to Ohio State just last year. So many close games, and so many times Notre Dame was on the wrong side of history. And for the first time, I feel like that's not going to be the case this year. This is finally it. I think this is finally it. That the Notre Dame football team finally gets on top of college football once again. And how sweet would it be to beat Ohio State after that game last year, and after that crazy coach, Ryan Day, and his end of game interview, which was crazy because he wanted to beat up Lou Holtz, it seemed like.
Well, we have an update there, by the way.
Really?
Holtz responded today.
Really?
Kind of.
What did he say?
More or less about how,
They have no toughness?
well, he wouldn't be upset about Ohio State winning because that would mean the fans have to justify keeping Ryan Day around.
Yeah.
So, interesting, reverse, but not reverse psychology by Lou Holtz,
Yep.
I guess.
Another game I'll throw out there, Pat Russo, your brother. When we got crushed by Miami that one game, that was also another tough one. But beating Georgia, I know with the backup quarterback, you can say whatever you want, blah, 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 blah. And beating Penn State, which is very similar to Notre Dame, the only difference between those two teams is that we have just a little bit better quarterback.
And you have a different kind of shower.
Yeah. We don't get any creeps, I hope. But and it's great to see them back on top, and I'm so sick of it. I love being the underdog because I'm so sick of hearing about how is Notre Dame going to stop Ohio State? How are they going to stop us?
But how is Ohio State going to stop you? Because how are you going to stop Ohio State? Because, hold on. Well, look, Ohio State, better or worse, they were just the better team against Texas, right?
Yeah.
Texas had a couple moments where you can make the case it was otherwise, certainly, but Ohio State ended up getting them in the end by what ended up being 2 possessions. It felt like more. It just did.
Opening up as a 10-point underdog is a disgrace.
It's not that anymore, though.
It's not. Still a disgrace. Last time I checked, they lost to Michigan just 4 games ago. So, and they beat up a very overrated Tennessee team, arguably slightly overrated Oregon team, not number 1 in the country, and they beat up a Texas team that I thought needed a quarterback, and Ewers is not the answer, and he goes pro today, and it's like a big deal. Who wants him?
We got Arch Manning though now, man.
Yeah, it's his team. It's his team now to win.
It's true.
And it's not surprising Texas loses. Texas always loses. And Notre Dame, you could say it's that same case. But we're here. We're back. First time since I was a senior in high school. We're in the national championship.
So for the sake of picks, should I just pencil you in as Notre Dame?
Oh, yeah.
Is what you're saying?
There's no way in hell I'm picking Ohio State.
I have to ask for the sake of housekeeping purposes here. Don't hate me.
Sure.
And
they're very talented. They got a lot of money there.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a great game. But, man, if we blow them out, it'll be the happiest of everybody. And if they win this game, already will be in the top 10 of my favorite sports games of all time.
Okay. I respect that. We both went 1-1 last week in our picks. I, too, am taking Notre Dame Monday night against Ohio State. Look, I picked Notre Dame at the start of the year to make it this far, at the very least.
2 years ago, you picked them and the Giants to win the championships.
You also picked the Devils a couple of years ago.
Right.
So
apparently,
we got that going for us. Look, I just don't know what to fully expect from this Ohio State. It's not so much their defense, really their offense. I don't know what version of it we're going to get. Do we get the version that we saw towards the end of the first half Monday or last Friday night? Or do we get what we saw when they played Michigan at the end of November? Do we get the offense that we saw when they faced off against Michigan State, or do we see the offense when they faced off against Oregon in the regular season, right? Or do we see the offense that showed up in the Rose Bowl? What do we see, right? What do we get?
who's the one team that almost beat them? Was it Minnesota or something?
Yeah, Notre Dame's been the more consistent team in that sense, right? I think it's crazy. When I did the note sheet today, it was down to being 8 points, Notre Dame being the underdogs. Still think that's an awful lot in a championship game at any level for football in that sense. I think they went outright anyway. I'm going to fight the Irish.
Hopefully they do better than TCU a couple years ago.
Yeah. Well, either one of them, right? So,
But that's what's great about college football. It's with this NIL stuff, and it just makes every team more even.
Yep.
But if Ohio State has Kyle McCord in this game, it's not even close. They win the game.
You're goddamn right. Hey, before we get out of here, Baseball Hall of Fame. We already have part of the class of 2025 going in that we know of in Dave Parker and Dick Allen through the Veterans Committee. I forget the actual technical name of this.
You've been waiting for Dave Parker.
And to be fair, Dick Allen as well. But we have our player modern day ballot set to be announced next Tuesday. Obviously, that's the day before we reconvene again, so we have to talk about now, Nick. The two main new guys on the ballot, everybody's talking about CeCe Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki. Right, yeah.
Ichiro Suzuki.
I want to start here before I show my ballot like I always do, my fictitious one that has no bearing. I don't see it happening just the way the numbers are falling right now. It's not going to be that way. Do you think that there's any chance that we see a no-person class elected in 25?
Oh, hell no.
There was a weird moment when the first ballots were released that
Really?
that it was trending for a moment.
Oh, my God.
Not going to happen.
I think Ichiro Suzuki should be unanimous, but he's not going to be.
I think if you're in, you should be unanimous anyway. But we've had that discussion I don't know how many different times over. I don't think it's worth fully regurgitating again for the millionth time. So, do you want to see the ballot? Mm-hmm. All right. So here we go. We got my ballot up here, my fictitious one. Remember, you're allowed up to 10 votes. I had 8 this year make my cut. Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, Andy Pettit, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, CC Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki, and Billy Wagner were the 8 that made my ballot. Nick is away from the mic, so I'm going to try and help out here as best I can. He's coming back now after looking at it. Nick, I'll leave the ballot up here for you still for the moment here. Agree with my ballot? What would you do different? How would you kind of fall?
Obviously, I know you. I know you, so I know you want the steroid guys in there. And
it's not my fault we got steroid guys already in the Hall of Fame. It's not my fault.
Yeah, and that's why you got, Manny Ramirez, A-Rod, which should be Hall of Famers, but are not going to be, which is sad. Billy Wagner's final year, I think he finally gets in, but those 2 guys in the top right obviously are in. CC Sabathia, go look at his numbers, and Ichiro Suzuki, who I personally would have in my all-time team. That's how good I think he is.
Well, that's an interesting one for you.
I'd move over to the left because Clementi's in right.
I was about to say I don't know how you're gonna make it work, but so where are you putting Willie Stargell?
Willie Stargell?
So he's just at first base then?
He might be on the bench.
Wow.
I know, pops.
Back to your ballot.
I have to look it up. Who's it? Andrew Jones? Yeah, how is Andrew Jones not in the Hall of Fame? Is he steroids? No.
Technically speaking.
Oh, he is?
Technically.
And Carlos Beltran? Is that the other one?
Yep.
Andy Pettit. Usually you go 10. You only went 8 this year. There's a lot of,
there's a lot of
first-timers that just aren't.
The tough, that was a tough part this year. Is there was a lot of. So the interesting one that a lot of people have talked about up on here, and I'll leave it up here for another quick second while we get going. The interesting one on here that a lot of people have brought up is Felix Hernandez.
Is that the 9th guy? Is that the guy I just missed for you?
No.
Who's that?
The guy who just missed for me probably would be, and he's not even technically a first-time guy, would probably be a guy like Francisco Rodriguez.
Yeah, but Felix.
The tough part with a guy like Felix is how do you gauge the peak against the whole body?
My guy Russell Martin can't get a vote?
There's a really interesting kind of stream surrounding his vote right now. If you look at his defensive numbers, he's actually like a top 5 catcher since like the 1970, I think it is. Again, though, my issue with him, if you're going to go that route, my issue with him is, again, how do you weigh the peak compared to the whole body? That's the thing. I'm going to pull up the ballot again here just quickly.
So who do you realistically think is going to make it?
I think we're looking, honestly, at just 2 in CC and Ichiro.
Yeah.
Which
I
sucks.
think Billy's got to.
Billy's trending the right way. I just have to believe it when I see it. Because he was trending the right way last year. And those final ballots that don't get publicized beforehand, he didn't get across the finish line with them. So,
yeah,
there's that. Yeah, this
lefty relievers are even in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Sheesh. I guess it kind of depends too how you view it. I mean, Hoyt Wilhelm, but he was a starter for a while.
Well, aren't most relievers? Wasn't Wagner a starter?
No, I mean maybe, but I don't know.
I mean, nowadays.
I mean, the tough part with this ballot, and look, the tough part with this ballot is you look at all these names for the most part, especially you mentioned Nick, the first timers. Very goods, but probably not touching the Hall of Fame, right? I mean, Curtis Granderson.
What was that? Torrey Hunter?
Yeah, I mean, Curtis Granderson's a pretty good example in my mind of the whole entire peak versus entire body of work. You look at him probably from like 2008 through like 12. And that's the only numbers you're looking at, you're like, yeah, that's for sure Hall of Fame. Everything else, probably not.
There's some great players.
The only other one on there who has a very interesting case, and I did leave him off, is probably Bobby Abreu.
Yeah.
Who?
Still on? How many years he got left?
I think next year might be it.
Yeah.
Actually, no, because when was his last year? Was his last year technically 12? So I guess he does have a couple more. But Abreu's a metric darling in terms of hitting.
Yeah.
And look, he was a very good hitter even when he was playing. I don't want to get that twisted. The guy was one of my favorite players. You put him in. to me anyway, you put him in, I'm probably going to have to vote for Utley. I'm going to have to probably vote for Tulowitzki. Probably going to have to vote for Kinsler and Pedroia, and I just don't view any of those guys as Hall of Famers.
There's the Hall of Very Good, and there's the Hall of Fame.
Correct.
And this is the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And what I always like about this time, seeing all the first-timers, these are guys we grew up watching.
Yeah, especially now. Well, now we're getting into guys who even
Not saw their whole careers.
not so much grew up, right? I mean, we were in middle school when
These guys came on the scene.
the peak of these guys really came on.
We've seen these guys' whole careers,
Yeah.
so we know them, but we know a lot of those guys. Nice careers, not Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Like Troy Tulowitzki, man, if he was healthy,
Yeah, I mean, the main one with that probably, in all honesty, in this class is going to be Pedroia.
even if Pedroia, if he was healthy.
And, I mean, even then, I look at his numbers with the years he was healthy, and outside of a couple, I don't feel it.
Doesn't have 2,000 hits.
Yeah.
You got to have 2,000 hits to make it.
Well, I disagree, but only because if something kind of happens, you know what I mean? Like, a guy gets hit by a car and has his leg amputated or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean in the grandeur of it. Yeah. So, all right. I think that does it then for the podcast today.
Wow, late one.
Hey, we're getting out here before 11 p.m. today. Who are you shouting out today, Nick?
Triple shout out.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think I do this every year. My Aunt Molly's birthday's on Friday. Charlie Barbie's birthday's on Saturday. And my Aunt Nancy's birthday's on Sunday.
Lots of cake.
Yeah. Shout out aunts, cousin-in-laws, and
Friends of the podcast.
yeah, friends of the podcast. Shout out, triple shout out, Aunt Molly, Charlie, and Nancy.
Yeah.
Also, big Deal or No Deal Island episode on tonight. Dr.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah, I don't
Check it out.
know how to feel about that show.
Go see the clips. Until
Yeah,
TikTok.
I mean, I don't. Well, yeah, R.I.P. TikTok. I don't know how to feel about that show. Maybe that's a discussion for a couple podcasts down the line when it's just NBA and NCAA basketball going on. But yeah, either way.
Take us home.
Hey, we're back normal time as far as I know next week. No meetings that I know of, no nothing that I know of. So back at it, normal time next week. Appreciate everybody for the live, if you're a live viewer, listener, to hang out with us here late night. We're getting out here on that note. Appreciate everybody for listening and tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe to the FingerLakes1.com YouTube channel and major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Amazon Music. Back again next Wednesday. Enjoy your week, everybody.